pretty excited to talk about this subject today. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host today, as we expose many of the corruption of current chairman of the Republican Party in Minnesota, David Hann. And we ask the question, can Republicans win in Minnesota going forward? What else are we going to be talking about today, Jesse?
Yeah, we got a good show lined up. We'll be talking about whether or not you need to change the quarterback if you want to have a winning team. Talking about the chairman, David Hann. We'll be talking about building from the ground up. That's what the MNGOP needs to do. In order to win in 2026, they need to have a good gubernatorial candidate. Otherwise, it will be another loss. And the MNGOP, of course, abandons its base, which is one of the major reasons conservatives don't come out to vote, because they see that the Republican Party isn't actually going to fight for them when they get into office. I see we got some comments already here. Mary Kay says, good afternoon. Tucker91, good afternoon. Susan Scarella says, howdy. We got Hate MN saying, hey, everybody. Agent Orange 68 MAGA to infinity and beyond. I like that comment. We got Napkin 8. What's up? Dave's right. Good day. And Laser Jim, hi from Gaylord. So appreciate all you guys tuning into the show. Make sure to leave a Rumble rant if you want to make sure that your comment gets read here today, because we got a lot to get into.
Yes, and we'll be trying to monitor Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at the same time. We're live on all those platforms, which is a lot of fun. Running the dials, doing all the dirty work down behind the scenes is Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How you doing there, Dawson?
I'm doing good, preparing for the big A4L Christmas party event going on Thursday. It's going to be very fun. I'm excited.
Tons of fun. I get to dust off that auctioning skill that I have. Many people will enjoy the humor of that event. Plus, it raises money for a good cause. Okay, we couldn't do this show without our great sponsors today. Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren Wessel a call at 612-419-7453. I know a lot of people say, oh, my good friend, as if this is not, like this is something I say. No, this guy I've known for a long time. He's like you and me politically. He sings in my church choir, and he's my realtor, and he's a damn good realtor. So give him a call if you're looking to buy or sell a home. Now, if you're buying a home, somebody I also known about as long as Warren Wessel, Tim and his brother Andrew, who I didn't meet until more recently, they started a company with some other good patriots called John Galt Mortgage Company. This is a good way to finance your new home. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. If you're going to finance through somebody, you might as well pick guys that believe the same things that you and I believe in. And also, we're brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. One other thing here, we are still giving away tickets to Jordan B. Peterson when he comes to St. Paul, Minnesota. If you would like a chance at winning those tickets, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com/JBP, as in Jordan B. Peterson. I see Brad Ganser says in the comment section, Christmas party week.
Yep, and Napkin 8 is asking if there will be tickets at the door for the Christmas event.
Yes, Napkin 8. We always hate that, but we never want to turn someone away. So you run the risk, though, of it selling out. So just FYI, but I think you'll be fine. I think we usually have this little buffer zone that we can take people in at the last minute. All right, so anyhow, let's get right into this. I just put this up on truthhurtsnews.com. So you guys are the only ones that've seen it. I haven't pushed this out yet because, quite frankly, I probably got to do some cleanup. But I picked the top 5 reasons why David Hann must go. Now, before we go to that, Dawson, let me just speak real candidly here. If you're a football team and you want to get to the Super Bowl, okay, at some point you got to change the quarterback if that quarterback is not succeeding, okay? Using another analogy, you got to change the coach. Maybe in this regard, it's more of a coach, right? Candidate is the quarterback. My Chicago Bears, my beloved Chicago Bears, just removed their coach. They needed to because they're not going the direction they need to. Mm-hmm. They also removed their quarterback. They dealt Justin Fields to the Steelers and got the first pick overall in 2024. Now, Caleb Williams looks great. Obviously, we're not going anywhere this season, okay? Going for a draft pick. But that's what you got to do. You got to change the players. You got to change the coaching staff. You got to make monumental changes to the organization if you want to win the Super Bowl. Why do we talk about sports? Because it's just such an easy analogy here, right? Well, politics is no different. Why on earth would you expect to get a different result if you have the same players again? And my God, most of our audience is from Minnesota. You guys understand this. You're Minnesota Viking fans, right?
And then we got someone like David Hann who says, the other team is not the enemy. They are not the enemy. They are our friends. We need to be working together. So that's the style of David Hann, because Ken Martin and him, they're best friends. He doesn't feel any reason to be confrontational when it comes to Ken Martin. He's always confrontational when it comes to the grassroots. He's confrontational when it comes to Action for Liberty. He's confrontational when it comes to, the conservative grassroots. But when it comes to Democrats, David Hann has no problem at all.
That's right. Okay, so the person that clearly, in my mind, needs to be removed, if you want to call him quarterback, you want to call him coach, whatever it is David Hann. And the reason we're bringing this up is it just so happens that the Republican Party of Minnesota, their state central delegation, that's like 350 people, determine who becomes the next chair of the party for the next 2 years this Saturday, December 14th. Do you know where they're meeting? Do you know, where's the place? I think it's the cities, right?
I'll pull it up.
Okay, so Tucker 91. Oh, goody. The turkey is back in my yard. Yeah, Tucker was texting me earlier that he's got a turkey, and he said he's in my backyard. And looked, it was a hen, and he assumed the gender of the turkey, which is just bad, Tucker. How dare you do that? Don't misgender your turkeys.
The Minneapolis Marriott Southwest.
There you go, Minneapolis Marriott. All right, so they will be there on Saturday to determine who becomes the next chair, deputy chair, and secretary. We just had Brett Bussman on the podcast on Sunday night. A little update on that. Brett Bussman has done the interview now, and so he's waiting a final determination from the nominations committee. And as we exposed on Sunday, nomination committees are often used to stop candidates that are not in favor with the establishment, the people that pick who's on the nominations committee. Excuse me. All right, so anyhow, that's this Saturday. If you're going to change the quarterback, the closest opportunity is this Saturday. I'm not saying it ends on Saturday. I mean, if David Hann gets reelected, which is foolish, but if he does, he can still get taken out at some other time because he fails to perform. But it's just easiest to do it this Saturday, right? Okay. Now, Brett's one candidate. You got Alex Plekish. I know you don't like him, Jesse, but he's been actually on the show. David Hann wouldn't come on the show. By the way, neither will Kip Christensen. We were supposed to have Kip Christensen on the show today, and the guy bailed on us, which I kind of predicted he would do anyhow. So we'll get into that, too.
He picked the date. He selected this date, too. It's not like you scheduled this and then he said, no, I can't do it. No, he picked the date. And then, he backs out at the last minute. We got a $5 rumble rant from Brad Ganser. I want to know more about this mysterious Wyoming corporation. Don't we all? We would like to know who is running this 1972-10. But, yeah, currently it's, being kept a secret. It's unbelievable that we have, the MNGOP is spending money that is, coming from donors to an organization out of state that people have no idea who owns it. It's very, very sketchy.
Well, you just took one of my 5 away there. Good job, guys. But, hey, $5 Rumble Rant is worth it. So let's go to the article, the top 5 reasons. This is just me. You tell me if you disagree with it. And I did this in order, okay? The top 5 reasons, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com. And, yes, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. By taking out, Jake means removed by majority vote. That's what I meant. That's yes, correct. That's what I meant. In today's political world, I meant removed by majority vote. Thank you. This is the order I have them in. You tell me if you disagree, because there's lots of more reasons why this guy should be gone. Number 1, Hann unilaterally moved 200 duly elected delegates from Otter Tail County in February 2024. Most of the Republican precinct caucus in February 2024 went smoothly. However, members of the Otter Tail County establishment tried quashing the voice of hundreds of delegates at the county's precinct caucuses. But the grassroots organized and were able to get elected as delegates to Otter Tail County on caucus night, which was a monumental achievement and may have changed the outcome of the Congressional Endorsing Convention, as we've talked about on the show many times. Michelle Fischbach was challenged by newcomer Steve Boyd. Hann unilaterally decided to not recognize these delegates and worked with the party's attorney and the Otter Tail County establishment to stop them from having an annual convention, which is required by their own constitution. Now, I link our story in there, which lays out what exactly happened. I think at this point, guys, I've talked about this enough on the show. I don't need to go over it, but let's just do a 1,000-foot flyover. Who the hell is David Hann to determine, as the chair of the GOP, that all the delegates in a county in Minnesota are null and void. Like, just think about that. Who is this guy? And it just so happens, and we did the story, or Action for Liberty did the story. It's so obvious. These people are good grassroots conservatives. They're doing the right thing. A lot of MAGA people, a lot of America First people. The problem that they had, and I would allege that Tom Emmer runs the MNGOP, de facto runs the GOP, is that his gal, Michelle Fischbach, was in trouble. There was a very legitimate endorsing challenge against her, and Otter Tail County had the largest faction of delegates to that convention. And if I would venture another reason they would have done this, Tommy Miracle, who was the establishment guy in Otter Tail County, wanted to have a hold on Otter Tail County and didn't like all these newcomers. Let's be honest, Trump people, right? Although some of them go way back before Trump. Okay, so that's number one reason. That should be the only reason, quite frankly. If a party chair just says 200 people's voice is just gone from the party, just from the basic, like, you can't win in politics by getting rid of people. That's just so dumb. You are literally getting rid of people. If you're going to get rid of people, get rid of the lying scumbag rhinos. But no, you got rid of, like, the good people, the people that, like, will donate and go to parades and staff booths and stuff like that. What a dumb thing to do. That alone should disqualify him for running again. Okay, number two. Hann cut off data access to conservative MNGOP-endorsed legislative candidates a couple weekends before the primary election. This is in 2022. I should have put that in here. Several conservative grassroots candidates who had the endorsed Republican Party's endorsement lost access to the party's data system a couple weekends before their primary elections. The candidates who lost access were clearly targeted and had establishment-backed opponents. In some cases, the candidates who lost data access lost their primaries. One of those people, Brett Bussman, who we had on the show, is running against David Hann. Carol Exum, who is an Otter Tail County patriot, says it was more than 200 people. Yeah, that's right. I actually rounded down on that. It turns out it was way more than 200 people. So, yes, they cut off data access. This was Tom DePaul,
Natalie Barnes,
Bill Liskey, Mark Bashofsky, Brett Bussman. I might be forgetting someone. Those are at least five. Mm-hmm. You know what's also interesting about those five? Yeah, I said that already.
Oh, okay.
You know what's also interesting about those five? They happen to, show up to Action for Liberty events and know a lot of people, and Action for Liberty people support them, right? So it's like, of course, they were targeted.
Well, and they were all anti-establishment.
Correct.
You know, they were all against the establishment candidate. That's what unites all of them, is that they were opposed to the incumbent or they were opposed to the establishment candidate. And
all five had opponents in the primary.
Right. And despite them being endorsed by the local Republicans, despite the grassroots saying, this is our candidate, this is who we want to select, the party and David Hann was putting his thumb on the scale by making sure that the data access was revoked for these five candidates, even though they did nothing wrong.
Yeah, and then they don't tell them anything all weekend long. So you got to imagine, if you're running for Minnesota House, when do you get to do your door knocking and phone calling? Probably on the weekends, right? It's paid attorney to file an erroneous campaign finance complaint against the Action for Liberty, the organization leading the effort to expose Tim Walz. Now, yeah, sure, personally, because I was president of Action for Liberty at the time. But once again, there's two real problems with this. It's a bad use of party resources, donor money. But number two, Action for Liberty is like leading the charge against Tim Walz. Like, you can't find an organization exposing Walz more. What was their booth called that year?
Never Walz.
Dump Walz,
right?
Dump Walz. Yeah, like, huge effort. They filed an erroneous complaint. So in May of 2022, the MNGOP's lawyer, Rondell Reed-LeBeau, filed an erroneous campaign finance complaint against Action for Liberty, alleging the organization violated the law with an illegal corporate contribution and suggested referring the case to the Washington County Attorney to prosecute its leader for a felony crime. The MNGOP lawyer helped usher that complaint to a probable cause investigation phase, and David Hann used the entire GOP email system to lie about Action for Liberty's mission, cheer on the weaponization of government against them, and falsely accuse its leadership of creating a felony act. Okay, so here is exactly what David Hann... So imagine, David Hann, he's actually a terrible communicator to the people of Minnesota. As Jesse has talked about in the show, when Donald Trump had many different lawfare tactics used against them, including the raid on Mar-a-Lago, which was unprecedented, you never heard a peep from David Hann, right? He didn't talk about when did he finally say something about Trump's issues with, the targeted attacks by the left? I mean, at some point he must have talked about it. But you were on that like from the get-go. The guy was silent on it. And he was a leading candidate. Trump was a leading candidate, right? Mm-hmm. But if Action for Liberty gets a campaign finance complaint against us, he now all of a sudden can communicate to the whole Republican Party of Minnesota. Who knows how many emails that is? 100,000 plus? So this is what Hann wrote. We welcome the CFB, that's the Campaign Finance Board. We welcome the CFB's findings and applaud the House Republican Campaign Committee for speaking out against Action for Liberty. By the way, he's referring to Kurt Dowd in that regard, who is a lobbyist legislator. Action for Liberty has adopted as its mission to defeat Republicans and disrupt MNGOP conventions, parades, and other political activities in the effort to intimidate the public. What the fuck is he even talking about there? Like, that's just a complete lie. And first of all, to defeat Republicans, can you imagine an organization that wants more conservative Republicans
than
us?
The guy that's against disrupting parades is using Kip as his deputy chair. Yeah. Kip is the one who, invaded that parade and got in people's space and was taking photos of them. And, people say he was being a political stalker. So it is what it is. But, he wants to throw everything at Action for Liberty. And when these people say they want unity, this proves that they don't.
Hann writes, they are not committed to Republican principles and do not believe the primary work of political activity is to create governing majorities. Well, that's actually true. We don't believe in just creating governing majorities. What we believe in is actually protecting liberty. Like that's the goal. Shrinking government, protecting liberty. Where we reject their narrow vision and illegal tactics. First of all, that's just a false claim right there, illegal tactics. This is an important step in holding this group accountable. By the way, then we link into where we were cleared of all wrongdoing. And it went on for almost 2 years. That's how ridiculous this thing was. All funded by the lawyer of the MNGOP. All right, number 4. And this goes to what Brad Ganser said. Number 4, Hann orchestrated mysterious payments to a vendor named 1972-10 Company that has no listed principal. When questioned by members of the state executive committee, Hann refused to inform them who was behind the vendor and what specifically it was funding. There are payments by the MNGOP to a newly created Wyoming company. And by the way, that's one state you don't have to actually have a listed principal. So that's why people would use it here. It's called 1972-10 Company LLC. Because of Wyoming laws, they're not legally disclosed. The party has spent tens of thousands of dollars with a mysterious vendor for unknown reasons. It's kind of hard to read on the screen, but you'll see like these payments of like $6,000. They're all around that $4,000 to $6,000 mark. I think it amounts to over $30,000 in less than a year, somewhere in there. The issue has been brought to the attention of the MNGOP State Executive Committee, and this is where I think it's really corrupt. Hann refused the request from members of the committee for information about who is behind the company and what it was for. So if you imagine, here's the MNGOP, here's the delegation of the MNGOP, here's the state central delegation, here's the executive committee. That's like the most inner workings of the MNGOP. It's like the state executive committee, the inner circle. 14 people on the state executive committee? They should know everything about the party, and Hann won't even tell members of the state executive committee what this company's for. Now, this kind of raised some suspicion from us. We had kind of assumed we knew who it was, but then the Star Tribune reached out to us, and they wanted to hear. They were wondering if we had heard rumors, and the two rumors we have heard, one is that Republican hater Michael Broadcorp, who famously endorsed Tim Walz and famously endorsed Kamala Harris in 2024, and basically just an asshole. I mean, the guy's a lowlife. So that's the rumor that he's behind this organization, and who knows what they would be paying him for. If that's the case, that's a really big story, right? That you're paying some guy that actually goes out and endorses these leftists. I thought what was more likely it's going to a questionable company set up by the people behind Right Now Minnesota. I hyperlink in there a Star Tribune article about Right Now Minnesota and how they're basically using money of donors and not doing what they said that we're going to do. Very questionable. Those are the only two theories I've heard. I don't know if you've heard anything else.
2727 says, I've heard Broadcorp is behind the Wyoming Corporation. 1972 refers to Nixon. Some say Broadcorp is obsessed with Nixon. So I guess that's kind of where people are looking at it too. And Brad Ganser says Mark Pierce is the lawyer that set up 1972-10 Corporation. Good information to know.
Okay. Do we know who Mark Pierce is?
I don't.
Do you know, Brad? I'd be interested. 1972 is also last year. This is going to go into number 5. Is last year that Republicans won, a presidential candidate won Minnesota's electoral votes. So number 5, and this maybe is the most important to most people, is Hann has failed at all big election-related metrics in 2022 and 2024. Those are 2 election cycles he's overseen. In 2022, the MNGOP lost control of the Minnesota Senate. They failed to win back the Minnesota House, and they lost election to lying Tim Walz. That gave the Democrats a trifecta in the Minnesota state government that led to higher taxes, driver's license for illegals, transgender surgeries for minors, and gun control. And in 2024, using David Hann's own metrics, he failed every electoral metric. I'm not even making this up, boys and girls. This is like the fundraising mailer that was sent to me in October from David Hann, and it even says exactly what the metrics are. And so if we go back to this graphic, Hann failed to win Minnesota's 10 electoral votes for Trump, even though he said he was going to do it in this letter. He failed to expand Minnesota's GOP congressional delegation. They lost CD2 and lost CD3 by a double-digit margin. Number 3, he lost the Minnesota Senate District 45 special election. Number 4, he did not flip the Minnesota House. If the Minnesota House gets flipped, it's actually in the court's hands right now. But it was definitely not won by Republicans. They got really lucky. Because quite frankly, if I was guessing in Senate District or House District, it's not 54. What is the district? What is Shakopee? Is it 54?
Yeah.
Why does that not sound right? Oh, it was 55 before. Okay, 55. So 54A, if they win that, I'm still guessing Tabke probably won it, but we just never know because those ballots were thrown in the trash. So it's not like they really won it, right? But then we could test him again. Hopefully we don't have to test David Hann at that point because he's long gone, but they would have a special election. And number 5, they didn't defend GOP endorsements in the August primary. I mean, my God, they literally had multiple endorsed candidates that lost. David Hann didn't do anything. There was no sample ballot to the primary voters in Minnesota. So those are the top 5. Do you disagree with any of those things, or you want to expand on them, Jesse?
Everything's right. I mean, the only thing that I would include on there is the fact that he's a big-time never-Trumper, and this is the party of Trump. So if he wants to, be in charge of the party of Trump, the least he should do is be aligned with the principles of it. And he was a big-time anti-Trump guy in 2016. Probably kept it quiet in 2020. And then after the election, he went nasty again. So it is what it is. He's a big-time never-Trumper. And considering the fact that the MNGOP State Central Committee did pass my previous resolution to condemn the Trump indictments, and when I questioned David Hann on that in a private conversation, he was refusing to answer whether he voted for it or not, which tells me, of course, he voted against it. Yep. He refused to tell the body about that. He refused to send an email telling people that that had been passed at the State Central. He gave notifications of everything else that was passed at State Central, except for the fact that we condemned the Trump indictment. So the fact that this is the party of Trump and he is not in line with MAGA, he is not America First, it proves he should not be the chairman.
I like what Crucified 1993 says. The OTC, Otter Tail County, wasn't specifically to stop Boyd. This same corruption had been going on for years. They cheat in order to attain power and maintain power. I agree with you when it comes to locals, but why did Hann use so much political capital on that issue? And it seems to me it has to be much bigger than whatever the local establishment wanted, and I think that happens to do with Tom Emmer. Now, with that being said, let's play this clip. So, Kip, for full disclosure, this show is about the truth, okay? And it doesn't mean everything we say is true. When I say it or Jesse says it, well, I can't speak for you, but, I'm going to vet you. But when I say it, I believe it to be true. It doesn't mean it's true because I could have incorrect information, right? But I wouldn't be telling you something that I don't believe to be true because if I was, that would be a lie. Now, I'm dealing with the world of politics, so I'm dealing with a lot of people that tell you things they know not to be true, and they tell it to you as if it's truth, okay? So the whole point, the only point of this show is to have integrity, right? So, honest to God, we're going to try to tell you the truth all the time. And sometimes, and this is the reason we named the show The Truth Hurts, sometimes it's very hurtful to hear that truth, okay? Because you kind of, I think a lot of people are starting to find out the truth hurts when it comes to Joni Ernst in Iowa, right? Like, I'm just shocked by how many people on the right are like, oh, she's a rhino, she should be challenged. I'm like, Joni Ernst has been a disappointment ever since she got elected. What was that? 28? No, 20. When did she get elected the first time? 2016? I feel like it was 2016. But she's been just a massive disappointment. Sometimes the truth just hurts, okay? All right? So, we, on this show, believe we have a superior argument when it comes to what we're talking about. No, like, I will talk to anyone, whether they're rhino establishment people, as long as they're somewhat relevant, or someone on the left. I would really love to speak to people on the left. I put a challenge on on Twitter today. You know, it was. Did you see this? Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, is giving checks to families in New York now. I think it's like $200 or $300 checks to families. This is how she's fighting inflation. I would love to challenge any Democrat on what causes inflation, because they talk like it's corporate greed. That's what causes inflation. Like that, like somehow increasing the money supply overnight doesn't cause inflation. I think we have better arguments than the left. I think we have better arguments than the Republican rhino establishment. Okay, and so we'll invite them on the show, or they can come on the show if they ask us to have these. You know, as long as they're relevant. You know, if you're just some like troll or hater on, I don't have time for you. But if you have some relevance in the political landscape, you come on the show. So a couple weeks ago, Kip Christensen, who's running for deputy chair, I don't actually know Kip that well. I'm assuming maybe we've crossed paths at some time. I know he has with you, which is hilarious. But, you know, I don't know the guy. I know that he tends to be on the wrong side of a lot of these, you know, moves and stuff like that from us. But I don't know the guy. So he reaches out to Tushi, wants to come on a show, then eventually reaches out to me. I'm like, yeah, come on the show, make your case. I planned on talking about how he is supporting David Hann and running with David Hann for chair, you know? And then maybe, you know, Jesse, you've probably had some run-ins with him, so you had some stuff more personal. But I want to know why the hell he thinks David Hann's a good fit for chair, because I think he's wrong on that. And we could have this conversation. But I didn't think he actually wanted to come on, and it turns out he didn't. He bailed on us last night. I was just doing the follow-up to make sure he knew what time to be here and the location, and then says, oh, I can't come on anymore. And acts as if he's busy, but he's the one that planned the time and date. So anyhow.
This is only the largest concentration of state central delegates that he's ever going to be able to find in one place besides the state central committee. So considering that, you know, we have all these people in the chat here that are delegates of the state central convention, you would think that he would want to make his case. You would think he would want to clear up the record, but the fact that he doesn't want to proves that we've got him right on the nose where, you know, he obviously didn't like that article that I put out there about him, but, you know, it's all accurate, and I stand by everything that I wrote.
I must inform K-Wall, Napkin Nate to take a breath. They're waiting and holding their breath for the $2,000 Walls rebate check. So, guys, please start breathing again. You're not going to get those things. We could go into the finances of the party, but it's not looking good. I mean, sorry, the party. I'm talking about the party. The state government. They spent your money. That's what they did. So you're not getting those $2,000 checks. That was just a lie by Tim Walz. Another one of those lies by Tim Walz. Imagine that. All right. So Kip won't show up. Otherwise, I would have just asked him these questions directly. He was on Jack Tomczak's show on Saturday. And they discussed a couple things. You know, Dawson, I'm going to switch what I was going to do. I was going to play clip one, which is a shorter one. Okay. I want you to play the longer one. I think it's like 4 minutes. We'll just do 2 minutes of it. This is a question from Jack about these rumors if Tom Emmer's actually running the party. You've heard it from us a gazillion times. It's not like we're intimate with the Emmer team. We just can read the room. Like, that's so obvious that Emmer's basically de facto running the GOP. So anyhow, this is directly to Kip about these rumors, and Kip basically says, yeah, and Emmer likes David Hann. Go ahead, play this.
The rumor mill is which I am mostly out of.
All right.
But I'm picking up some things here and there that the new Republican establishment is the Tom Emmer machine. So where is the Tom Emmer machine on Kip Christensen as deputy chair?
Well, in a lot of things, I don't know where the Tom Emmer machine is.
Okay.
I know that the Tom Emmer machine was instrumental for getting the party out of debt for the first time.
So there is a Tom Emmer machine.
I mean, Tom Emmer is a machine. He is the whip.
That is true. He is a machine.
He is a
true,
machine.
Yes.
Like there is a definite Tom Emmer is a machine. I believe convictedly that the most supportive thing I can do for Whip Emmer is build this party into something where we have a much more effective operation in the state. You know, there at the same time are people that do not want the party to be effective, that do not want that world to exist.
So would you say that the Tom Emmer team is supporting you or not supporting your campaign?
The Tom Emmer team has told me that they're staying out of this race. Team Emmer, 2 people, Team Emmer, staying out of this race. They have told me that they are deeply supportive of Chair Hann. Right? That being said, we also have to, there is a really big disconnect. Why? I question, how did things get to a situation where our activists don't realize, this is where communication comes in. He got the party out of debt. We have support infrastructure finally for the first time in 14 years, thanks to that we haven't felt yet on the ground as activists, as the grassroots. We haven't felt that yet. But for the first time in 14 years, because of what David Hann and what Tom Emmer and what Anna Matthews accomplished, we have a party that can actually support them and grow and build and be exactly what they need. And our activists don't get that. We had people standing up at the last state convention booing Tom Emmer. That's absurd, and that is a communications failure.
All right, cut it right there. Yeah, well, first of all, I can't believe anyone even claps for Tom Emmer, to be honest with you, these days. What makes him a Republican? And who the hell calls him Whip Emmer? Like, what are you, a congressional staffer? Maybe he hopes to be. Like, literally, Tom Emmer's whipping votes to give your money to Ukraine. He's whipping votes to put your kids further into debt, $36 trillion and counting. It's Tom Emmer whipping votes to fund Planned Parenthood in gigantic omnibus bills. That's your Tom Emmer. Boy, you know, honestly, I'm not a convention guy. You know, I got things going on, you know, kids and coaching and stuff like that. If I was at one of these conventions, I think I would be booing Tom Emmer. And certainly if I had a run-in with Tom Emmer these days, I would share my thoughts on him taking money out of my kids' future prosperity and giving it to Ukraine in a quagmire that can't be won. In fact, you know what, Tom Emmer, you're welcome to come on the show and let's debate Ukraine. I would love to debate that one with him. Or how about the cost of $36 trillion in debt? That'd be another good debate to have.
Right, and one thing that Kip is talking about in this interview, he's talking about how we need to give the endorsement teeth. Well, I wonder why people were booing Tom Emmer at the state convention. It's almost because he was not respecting the endorsing convention of CD2, in which his guy, his selection, Joe Tayrab, got crushed by Taylor Rahm. So people are booing him because he doesn't respect the endorsing convention. He doesn't respect the endorsing process. So, you know, Kip is talking out of both sides of his mouth. That's he's basically saying whatever he thinks he can get away with. He'll tell whatever lie he has to. He'll do whatever dirty work is needed. And yeah, the fact that he's calling him Whip Emmer, it's ridiculous.
It's so funny to
me.
me.
He's kissing his butt, you know, and it's just interesting that you know, the whole thing is such a scam. He's lying to people, and yeah, people are seeing right through it.
Okay, so
I honestly even think that a lot of the establishment's not supporting him either. I think that's one of his problems too. He's even alluding to it there that the Emmer people are not exactly with him 100% either, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case because I think even the establishment looks at him and says this guy is not he's not to this level. He is not someone who should be our leader. So I think that even the establishment, some of the old school people are looking at him and saying there's just too many problems to support him.
Right. Okay, so before we move on from changing the quarterback, you wrote an article. I think it's published or it's about to be published.
Not published yet, so
okay,
you guys will get to be
you guys get
first
the unpublished
eyes on
stuff.
this.
Yeah, there you go. So this is an article you're writing about State Central this Saturday. So Jesse's going to give you the inside look. And then what I want to do is I want to talk about what I think needs to happen for Republicans to win Minnesota because, quite frankly, I do think they could be successful. And, you know, there are people, Kip, who says Action for Liberty, people like us as well, don't actually want the party to be successful, and nothing could be further from the truth. What we don't want is a party run from the top down where Tom Emmer's little puppet, David Hann, gets rid of the voice of 200 delegates, just like that. That's what we don't want. But you know what we want? A grassroots funded and supported strong party, right? That would be really good for liberty. And guess what? You know, I don't know if Action for Liberty would have a mission if the party just did the right thing. It's the fact that they don't do the right thing and the fact that they don't move the ball towards liberty that they actually have to exist. A lot of us would rather just go, you know what? You know, Mort was reaching out to me. I don't know if I should say this, but he's like, Jake, we should give away, auction off a guided trip to the Boundary Waters between you and me. Because we were thinking like some fun things for our auction. You know, a lot of people have desire to go to the Boundary Waters but never done it before. I was like, yeah, that's more than me. Like, that's what we would love to do all day long is go outdoors, go camping. But no, we do this politics because these people aren't doing the right thing. So quite frankly, we'd love a greater party. So talk about State Central this Saturday.
Yeah, go ahead and pull up that article, Dawson, because there is now problems with the nominations committee where people are feeling that the nominations committee is rigging, being corrupt, and having double standards for different candidates. This is no surprise.
I don't have a link for it.
Yes, you do. It's in the document.
What do you know what line it's on?
Well, I guess I'll pull it up here. Line 9.
That's not on mine.
No, it's not.
Oh man, I put it in the wrong one. All right, I'll put it in here in just a second.
Don't be such a retard, Jesse.
Yeah.
I put it in Truth Hurts season 1.
Truth Hurts. Oh, you didn't do season 1? Did you really do season 1?
No, I put it in last week's.
By the way, I never say season because I kind of feel like that's so corny to say that for.
All right, go ahead and pull up
show.
the A5.
I think that makes sense.
It does kind of make sense. I get it, especially since we're a traditional year. There we go. Perfect.
That's not it either.
Well, we know that's your photo because it's stretched, Jesse.
All right, take it down, Dawson. I'll figure it out. Jake,
well, can you read? Can you read? We maybe don't have to show the visual. Can you just read it?
We're going to show the visual too.
Oh, you got visual? That just makes it even better. But you got a stretched image, I'm sure, right?
No,
oh my God! I love ribbing you, Jesse. It's so great.
No, I'm trying.
Let me go to some comments here. TrueSeeker0450 says they ignore anyone that is not them. You know, it's that old bit. Oh God, what's his name? George Carlin. That politics is one big club and you're not invited, right? Or you're not in it. That's 100% true. Oh, and the other thing I got to tell you, the Republican establishment has as its number one guiding objective not to win, whatever office. That is not their number one guiding objective. It is one of their objectives. It's very high. They do want to be a governing majority, but it's not their number one objective. This is something you have to understand, okay? Once you understand this, it'll make a lot more sense why they make moves that they make. Their number one objective is to have a monopoly on center-right politics. And it's why, as Jesse alluded to, David Hann and Ken Martin can be buddies, right? They're publicly against each other, but they're really not against each other. As long as they're still in the club, they're still part of the power structure, they're fine, okay? Now, they would prefer to have a speakership. They would prefer to have a president. They'd prefer to have a governor. But at the end of the day, what they want to do is they want to be in power. And so the number one objective of them is to get rid of anyone that's challenging their power. And basically, the two-party system is Democrats have the monopoly on the left and Republicans have the monopoly on the right. And so why do they contend with groups like Action for Liberty, and why do they have problems with Truth Hurts News? It's because, quite frankly, they just don't like an organization or a news outlet that will call their bullshit out and people flock and gravitate towards them. I see you posted a lot of stuff in here. Did you?
Yeah, go ahead and pull up the A5, Dawson. Go ahead and pull up that beautiful non-stretched picture.
No, you did not. Did you really?
Go ahead and check it out, Dawson. The A5.
Oh my God, Jesse!
How good is that?
You made my day.
How good is that? The anti-grassroots leadership of the MNGOP, including Rhino Chair David Hann, has been a complete failure that has divided Republicans by giving preferential treatment and support to the establishment. The so-called party of election integrity is prone to its own manipulation and corruption at various levels. Currently, we look at the nominations committee for the state central and their attempt to tilt the scale for incumbent Rhino David Hann. The MNGOP State Central Committee meeting will be taking place this Saturday, December 14th, to conduct party business, most notably elections for chair, deputy chair, and secretary. This inter-party battle will determine the future of the MNGOP and the direction that we will be heading. Our previous reporting highlighted that David Hann backstabbed Donna Bergstrom by promising her that he would support her for chair only to endorse a shady political operative, Kip Christensen, instead. Out of desperation, Hann struck a deal with Kip so that they would not run against each other. And in a painfully awkward, cringy, and phony interview posted by Kip, he confirmed that he had thoughts against running against David Hann, but instead chose to form a unity ticket. This backroom deal led to turncoat Walter Hudson dropping out of the deputy chair race and immediately endorsing the Hann-Kip ticket. Go ahead and scroll down, and we can see the list of candidates that are currently going to be running for chair, deputy chair, and secretary. So, for chair, we have David Hann, Alex Plekish, Mike Murphy, and Brett Bussman. Deputy chair, Donna Bergstrom, Kip Christensen, and Fred Hage. And secretary, Joy Orvis is the only listed candidate as of now, but Eric Van Mechelen has announced to run as of yesterday to run for secretary. Considering the fact that there would be no competition otherwise, Eric Van Mechelen is stepping up to the plate to make sure the delegates have an option when it comes to the secretary race. And so each candidate is required to meet with the nominations committee for interviews, background checks, and it's chaired by an establishment puppet named Aaron Ferris. Aaron is additionally the CD1 MNGOP chair, despite his conflict of interest as a salaried employee of Congressman Brad Finstad, and used his role to kick Patriot Wendy Phillips out of a meeting and remove her from her role as the CD1 State Executive Committee member. This corrupt removal was because Wendy Phillips stood up for Otter Tail County Patriots by serving as a neutral party to their local convention. And like the puppet he is, Ferris followed commands from the higher-ups, and that is exactly what he is doing with the nominations committee now. Ferris and other members of the NomCom appear to be weaponizing the committee by utilizing their power to deem candidates as qualified, qualified with reservations, or unqualified to target opponents of David Hann. Rumors have been flying around that chair candidates Mike Murphy and Alex Plekish are set to be deemed qualified with reservations, despite both having previously been deemed qualified by a NomCom for the offices of governor and RNC committeeman, respectively. Only a corrupt process could find Rhino David Hann, the destroyer of the MNGOP, as the only qualified candidate. It looks like this nominations committee is so corrupt that they would even find Jesus Christ as qualified with reservations. Chair candidate Brett Bussman informed delegates via email that about an hour before a scheduled meeting with the nominations committee, he received a call from Aaron Ferris and the MNGOP lawyer canceling his interview. Brett said they presented a series of false accusations and asked questions, which he answered all of them. Brett later appeared on an episode of The Truth Hurts on Sunday and further clarified what the whole issue was really about, which was in 1984, Brett Bussman failed to return a cable TV box on time. That's the crime in question. And on the show, Brett discussed the circumstances of the event and the absurdity of that event holding up the interview with the NomCom. And we have to wonder, is the same level of criminal scrutiny being applied to all candidates? Were all candidates subject to an interview postponement due to a previous criminal activity? Has shady Kip Christensen faced the same scrutiny? Included in our previous reporting, new allegations have emerged as Amanda Hughes, wife of former CD7 GOP nominee Dave Hughes, posted on Facebook that Kip once tried to bribe Dave Hughes and pressure him to get out of the race. Dave Hughes addresses this story on a previous episode of The Truth Hurts, but did not mention Kip by name in the video. Kip allegedly threatened Dave's employment to cut off federal contracts and asked, "How will you feed your 7 children?" This is quite a dispute from Kip's narrative, which portrays his involvement with Dave Hughes with the grassroots in order to prop himself up. So go ahead and scroll down. You can see the post. That's from Amanda Hughes, wife of Dave Hughes. I guess it's up to the delegates and it's up to people to decide for themselves. Who do you trust more when it comes to the story of Dave Hughes? Do you trust Amanda or do you trust Kip? I think that people can make that determination for themselves. I think it's pretty obvious. December 10th today is the deadline for the nominations committee to meet with candidates, which gives them only a 2-day window for Brett Bussman's interview and background checks. The nominations committee is also required to make the official determination for the qualification designations by December 10th. Sources say that he has met with the nominations committee. And while rumors have been floating around about what the nominations committee is going to do, puppet Aaron Ferris is accusing, without evidence, that a leaker is sharing information with Action for Liberty. As the author's article, I can say with 100% certainty that I have spoken with 0 members of the NomCom, but if I had, why would transparency be such a boogeyman? Why would the members need to be a secret? What is there to cover up? What information is Aaron Ferris so nervous that A4L will learn? And worse for him, what if we already know? We'll let Aaron sweat on it for right now. Go ahead and scroll down. Go ahead and see that email that Aaron Ferris is putting out there, claiming that A4L is getting all this information. Well, guess what, Aaron? We got your email too. Perhaps Aaron Ferris is instead referring to the Minnesota Young Republicans, who are the real leakers. They sent out an email and CC'd the delegate list instead of a BCC, which included every recipient to have access to the email list. The Minnesota Young Rhinos are the real culprits. Or maybe Aaron Ferris is concerned with A4L President Eric Mortensen's reply to the Minnesota Young Rhinos email. So go ahead and scroll down. Let's look at what A4L President Eric Morton had to say to this email. He said, vote Hann out. David Hann has failed repeatedly. He attacks the grassroots and fails to honor the delegate endorsements. If the GOP is going to win, it cannot be led by losers. And if we're going to win, the leader must fight. But David Hann couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. And don't get me started on scumbag Kip. Thanks, Eric Mortensen. So maybe that's what Aaron Ferris is complaining about. But of course, that was not the fault of Eric Mortensen. That was the fault of the Minnesota Young Republicans, who obviously are not smart enough to use Google. The strategy of calling candidates qualified with reservations may end up blowing up in the face of the establishment, as previously seen with Royce White's dominant win over he/him Joe Frazier at the 2024 state convention. Despite the nomination committee's intended negative effects of Royce White's qualification designation. While delegates see party insiders using the power to tilt the scale, it can cause an equal and opposite reaction. In another instance of corruption of a nomcom, the CD6 nominations committee found patriot Chris Corey to be unqualified and refused to allow him to speak at the endorsing convention against globalist rhino Tom Emmer. Walter Hudson played a pivotal role in this convention by using his political capital to demand delegates enforce the nomcom's censorship and ensure Emmer had a coronation instead of competition. So our exposure of this story does one of two things. One, the nominations committee is exposed as a weaponized block of party insiders to protect David Hann. Or two, the nominations committee changes courses and treats candidates fairly. Three Rivers Park Commissioner Jennifer DeJornette was previously a candidate for chair but was removed from the nomination petition by Aaron Ferris for allegedly challenging the legality of several questions in the nomination paperwork and refused to answer such questions. Considering that the powers of the nominations committee and other bylaws are yet to be approved by the state central delegation body, Ferris and the nomcom had no authority to remove DeJornette's name from the nomination petition. So it's clear that the MNGOP is in desperate need of new leadership, but conservatives may find issues when looking at these other candidates. For example, Alex Plekish backstabbed Otter Tail County delegates in his previous role. He was an avid anti-Trumper during the 2024 primary, according to local patriots. He helped usher in corrupt presidential debate rules as an RNC committeeman. He fought a resolution condemning the Trump indictments at a previous state central, pushed by me. And in private conversation with the article's author, he told me that he regretted his vote to censure Liz Cheney as an RNC committeeman. Yeah. And in an appearance with The Truth Hurts, Plekish claimed that he was fooled by Hann and others into screwing Otter Tail over.
At least he'll come on the show. You got to give him credit for that. At least Plekish showed up, and I
think he's a grown man, and if he's getting fooled by David Hann, then obviously he's not qualified.
Well, at least came on the show. That's the thing I got to say about him.
But we can look at Mike Murphy. Mike Murphy betrayed his governor campaign supporters in 2022 by becoming an obvious ladder climber with his endorsement of gun grabber Scott Jensen. Murphy then let down the grassroots again by announcing a 2022 MNGOP chair run just to bail out of the race, leaving only Phil Parrish to challenge David Hann. Murphy also dropped out of a very brief CD2 congressional campaign. Corrupt CD6 chair and Emmer staffer Bobby Benson used his position on the Lexington City Council to hold a rushed, non-transparent, and unfair appointment of Mike Murphy to the City Council. As a delegate, Mike Murphy could be seen at the CD6 convention opposing all the motions to let Chris Corey speak against Tom Emmer. Or you could see Mike Murphy at the state convention, voting to approve of the corrupt credentials report that excluded the duly elected delegates of Otter Tail. So, I'm not seeing too much promise in Plekish or Murphy if people are looking for someone to be pro-grassroots, and Donna Bergstrom has used her capacity as deputy chair to screw over the Otter Tail delegates as well. Patriots cannot be expected to support Donna simply because Rhino David Hann backstabbed her. She's gained a taste of what the grassroots have dealt with for years with this Rhino leadership. And if she doesn't correct course and align herself with the grassroots will not support her. So it's clear that the MNGOP is dead and in need of revival. Kip Christensen is titling his run and project as Revive the MNGOP. If something needs to be revived, that means it's dead. Okay, so who killed the MNGOP? Of course, we know the answer is David Hann. Revive the MNGOP is simply a rip-off Temu version of the grassroots organization Rebuild the MNGOP. Perhaps imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, or Kip is simply just trying to appear grassroots. The Revive the MNGOP website that Kip has is simply a blank page that gives zero information. Even Kamala Harris eventually put forward a platform on her website. Are the standards so low in the MNGOP that distrustworthy people can get by on their word? I don't think so. So the state central convention is going to determine the future of the party. It's going to determine whether the America First base of the MNGOP is finally going to be represented, because as of now, it is not. And with a lot of these candidates, it's hard to see if anything will change. So they are going to have to step up to the plate to make sure that they actually represent the grassroots.
You don't change. You are like the best color commentary of all of politics, you know, honestly. I'm just worried Fox News is going to find out about how good you are, and they're going to be like, nope, we want MAGA Jesse, and I don't think I can compete with their budget.
Yeah,
So,
assuming I got as much creative freedom at Fox News, we'd have to see, because, I think there, I even had to try to consolidate so much onto this because there's so much to talk about with the state central convention, and, I didn't even address several of these other candidates and whatnot, But it's clear that the nominations committee is being weaponized. It's clear that Aaron Ferris is in the back pocket. I've heard some stories about Aaron Ferris as to pertaining to him and David Hann, that David Hann once tried to oust him, and so perhaps Aaron Ferris is just operating out of fear. He's doing as he's told by the establishment because he doesn't want to be kicked out of his spot. But he's someone that he can't be trusted because he is paid by Brad Finstad. At the same time, he is the CD1 chair. That's just as bad as Bobby Benson being paid by Emmer in CD6 and also being the CD6 chair. This guy is supposed to be, treating people as a neutral and fair source, but it's clear that the nominations committee is not being used in that way. And the fact that he said that Action for Liberty has been getting some of these rumors, Paul Tucci came on our show and was the one who had said, the thing about Plekish and Murphy potentially being listed as qualified with reservations. Well, that was just a rumor that's out there. So if that's accurate, that's the impression that I get with Aaron Ferris's email. The fact that Aaron Ferris is emailing saying Action for Liberty has been given this information. This has been, the members of the committee are spreading this information. Well, if that's the case, then that must mean it's accurate. And it would be absolutely insane for them to try to tilt the scale. But So, that's why we need these kind of stories out there, because it's either going to be exposed as a weaponized block of party insiders, or they're going to change course and treat candidates fairly because of the exposure. It wouldn't happen without the exposure.
all right. I want to go to that other clip on Kip, and then I want to go through what we think the Republican Party needs to do to be successful. And the reason I want to set this up is Kip addresses Action for Liberty directly. Now, I still somewhat think they're referring to us on Truth Hurts Show. Obviously, you work with Action for Liberty, Jesse, but it is run by Eric Mortensen, and I think he's got good direction for the organization these days. So maybe he's referring to the direction of Mortensen. I don't know, but I feel like this is the talking point against Action for Liberty that's been used many times. So this is what he has to say about the factions opposing him running for deputy chair. Go ahead and play it.
Well, I'm a strong endorsement guy, and that's probably what has the really interesting so there's a really interesting thing that's aligning strange bedfellows of the people that are opposing my candidacy.
Okay.
There's Action for Liberty on one side,
Okay.
and then there's some very few, but some of the very entrenched St. Paul establishment, right?
I didn't know there was a St. Paul establishment.
Oh, St. Paul. It's interesting. It's really fascinating. Both camps benefit deeply from an incredibly underfunded and ineffective and inefficient state party. A party that can't operate, a party that can't support its activists, a party that can't provide resources, a party that they see in one camp can't provide uncontrolled competition to their efforts, and then on the other hand, a party that they can message around and beat up like a punching bag on the Action for Liberty side.
That is true. The weaker the state party, the stronger these other organizations
Absolutely.
can be. Yes.
So those are the core groups that are fighting against me, right? And I'm hearing from people that folks calling for my opponents are saying, well, that Action for Liberty is against him. Well, and then when that tactic doesn't work, then they go to, do you know that these establishment people are against him? And it's really kind of a humorous narrative. So I believe that the party needs to be stronger. What we need is a strong state party that is communicative both down and up from what we're doing in St. Paul, what we're doing for our people across the state. They need to know the good stuff. We need to communicate better about things that go on, especially to our state central.
So this idea that Action for Liberty wouldn't want a strong party is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard.
We didn't make David Hann a rhino. David Hann made himself a rhino.
Right. The last I looked, Action for Liberty kind of people want the endorsements to work, right? They want the GOP endorsements to stand. They're the one. I mean, look, we just read a list. What we're saying David Hann failed at, and one of those is not supporting endorsed candidates. I can't imagine an organization that more supports the endorsement than Action for Liberty. And so, you know who doesn't want a strong party? It's the establishment. Now, the establishment's not one body, okay? So Emmer wants a strong party as long as he's the one calling the shot, which is clearly what's happening right now. He gets Trump to come into Minnesota, and the debt's wiped out. Otherwise, that would have been probably the leading reason Hann needs to be gone. But listen, here's the record of David Hann, in case you forgot. David Hann increased the debt in the MNGOP. If it wasn't, it's not like he had this long way of paying down the debt. No, he actually grew it by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Emmer calls in a favor and gets basically Donald Trump for one event in May, and it just gets rid of all the debt. So it's Trump that got rid of the debt, but it's obviously Tom Emmer's connections with Trump that got that debt erased. Otherwise, that's on David Hann as well. So it's like Emmer wants a strong party as long as the party is moving to his beat. But a lot of the establishment folks that are just third-party people, they don't want a strong party. They don't want strong endorsements. And quite frankly, I think my definition of a strong party, Jesse, would be one that could defend their endorsements. You think Tom Emmer wants to defend endorsements? No. His guy didn't get endorsed in CD2. And what a waste of money that was, the federal money that went into Joe Tayrab, who lost by double digits.
Right. Yeah, obviously Tom Emmer doesn't support the endorsing conventions for what he did in CD2 and the fact that they didn't even allow competition to him in CD6. So, Kip even said in the first clip that you showed that the Emmer team supports David Hann. It's like, yeah, no wonder, because he's giving them everything they want and he's allowing Emmer to truly run the show. So, who knows what Emmer's actual political goals are in the future here, whether that be speaker, whether that be a governor run. But he's probably trying to leave all his options open and make sure that he has his pieces on the table so that he can do what he wants.
All right, and just think, this is how dumb this comment is as well. If we literally wanted a weak party, then we would not be against David Hann, would we now? Because quite frankly, can you get much weaker than David Hann? The guy sucks at fundraising. He amounted massive amounts of debt until Trump came and bailed him out. And I doubt Trump's going to come bail him out in 2026. And they didn't, we read the list. They sucked. They lost everything electorally. So if we wanted a weak party, we'd be quiet and just cheer on David Hann, quite frankly. It's the fact that we don't want a weak party that we're like, maybe you got to change the quarterback. And maybe you got to do a couple other things. So let me go through the list and I put them on the bottom here. So number one, and this is number two, because technically changing the quarterback is number one. Once again, you got to change the quarterback because you're not going to get to the Super Bowl with the same quarterback that keeps failing. But number two is you got to build from the ground up. You really do. We know the districts, Senate District 3, 4, 14, out in St. Cloud area, and Senate District 41, which is my district, just so happens to be, lost by 321 votes. By the way, there's another thing that Republicans did. They're the reasons that we lost Senate District 41 and the Democrats have complete control of the Senate. We've talked about that on the show before, so I don't need to get back into it, but that's an interesting story right there. So 3, 4, 14, and 41, those are districts that need to be built from the ground up. This idea that you come in and you try to win an election 6 months before November is so utterly stupid. The left has shown us over and over again that they like to build inside and become members of that district. Now, they got this big team of school district candidates, city council, all that kind of stuff. But that's what you got to do. You got to make those investments immediately. And so you can't just show up at the last minute and think you're going to be successful. Now, here's what's really advantageous for Republicans right now. The Democrats are no longer the party of the common man. They are the elites. They are the Ivy Leaguers. The Democrat Party is Silicon Valley now. When you look at Kamala's campaign was the first $1 billion campaign. She had Hollywood, celebrities endorsing her and getting paid to endorse her too, by the way. They're the money party. Did you know that, what was it, 2/3 of the wealth in this country were Kamala, of people that donate, 2/3 was Kamala supporting. So Republicans have the bottom third, essentially. That's the wrong way to put it, because obviously Elon Musk is the top, but they have only a third of the net worth of this country gave to Republicans. You know, everyone knows at this point the Iron Range flipped because the typical old school labor union Democrats are starting to vote Republican. Okay, so it's so obvious to me that the Republicans should abandon the old country club Republican thing and work inside the districts, roll up the sleeves, become part of the school boards, and build this thing from the ground up on issues that are really important in these districts everyone knows. And the Democrats in Minnesota at least still do this, so it's going to be competitive. But by the way, there's so much gain right there. And then you don't just then voters actually appreciate you. You don't just show up 6 months before election, run a bunch of ads and a gazillion mailers and think you're going to win an election. And by the way, the fact that Republicans still win some elections, some toss-up elections that way, just shows that the ground is fertile for this state to go red. I have to emphasize this here. People that think that Minnesota's a lost cause, you have to understand the Democrats raise a ton more money than the Republican Party. And once again, that money is becoming much more wealthier money. Elijah Messenger, all these wealthy elitist Democrats giving to the Democrat Party. The Republicans could match that by just going to the grassroots and raising the money with new coalitions of people. And maybe business owners who start to believe in the Republican brand. But you got to build from the ground up. That's number one, and those investments got to happen right now. And you think David Hann's going to start actually using the BPOU system? They don't even do anything with their BPO. The Republican Party, when you think about it, is the most organized political element in the state of Minnesota. I know when I was leading Action for Liberty, we chatted about this. How big does our organization go? Like deep down it goes. The Republican Party goes down to precinct level, which is a small political unit, a precinct. They got a chair in they're supposed to have a chair in every precinct, and technically like a secretary and a vice chair. They literally have an organization that goes to every precinct, but they never use it. Being a precinct chair is a joke. I mean, that's not like the Democrats use every precinct chair either, but they do it better than the Republicans. But the infrastructure of the Republican Party is you have organization that goes down to the precinct level. You need to start investing in that thing. But you know it's not going to happen. David Hann's not going to if David Hann says, let's do this, it's like, well, why didn't you do it before? You kept losing. And by the way, he would be incompetent to do it anyhow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's number one. You got to build from the ground up. Number two, if we're going to win, you can't look at 2024 and not realize that this was the year of Trump. Trump is a game changer. Now, I would argue when it came to presidential politics, beating Kamala, because really the Democrats kind of screwed themselves. There's other Republicans that could have beat Kamala, no doubt about it. But there aren't a lot of Republicans that would have inspired and motivated certainly new coalitions of people like Trump did. Like it's not lost to me that Trump actually ended up getting RFK, a member of the Kennedy family, to endorse his campaign and go campaign with him, and Tulsi Gabbard. And then this whole podcast network, it's like this idea that Joe Rogan's some big right-wing guy. Like the fact Joe Rogan endorsed him is just showing that a guy like Donald Trump can make these monumental moves. He's a celebrity. He's larger than life. There's so many problems with Trump's principled viewpoints and consistency, and no one thinks that his consistency on issues matters, which just says that this candidate has some bit of level of attractiveness to the general people. Also very hated. But some in politics, you can be hated very much, but as long as you're loved by more people, which is what happened, in fact, in this whole country, more people. This first time Republicans won the popular vote since, 2004? I think so. I think George W. got it, beat Kerry. I want to say that's the first time since then. And then it hasn't happened since, by the way. So there you go. Popular vote as well. So what does that mean in Minnesota? I don't know. I would say, you find some kind of, it would be great to have some kind of a celebrity. I always think is Joe Mauer's politics good? Stuff like that. But you got to have someone that just has general attractiveness. You got to get somebody. I think the gubernatorial one's the important one. I guess it could work for Senate. But someone on the top of the ticket that brings that kind of energy. That's what I believe should happen. And then it helps rise the whole ticket. But if they could, and then that shouldn't be just the establishment and the party. Everyone should work towards finding the right guy, okay? And it'd be good if there's competing good guys, right? It doesn't have to be one, and let the endorsement figure it out. But we just have to have more attractive candidates here, So that's number 3, and then number 4, and this is important. And as we alluded to, what David Hann did against the delegates in Otter Tail County, you never abandon your base, okay? And the Democrats do so much better than Republicans. You have to ask yourself, what do we get with Republicans in the majority? And I've been in politics in Minnesota long enough to realize that it's basically nothing when Republicans are in charge. The last majority the Republicans had was in 2017. So Trump helped lift the overall ticket in 2016, and the Senate and the House went Republican. And they abandoned the base. They abandoned the base right away. The number one issue by David Hann and Paul Gazelka was to pass voter ID. It should have been voter ID. That would have been a good one. Pass real ID. That was their number one legislative goal in 2017, is to pass a federal ID system. On principle, we should have been against it. You know how ridiculous that issue was? There were 2 congressional districts, CD2 and CD7, that the Republicans in those congressional districts created a resolution saying that they were against voter ID. I keep saying voter ID. Against real ID. 2 congressional districts penned a resolution saying they were against real ID, and this is what the Republicans passed, and it got signed by Mark Dayton.
Yeah.
Can you imagine winning a legislative majority and your number one issue is against 2 of your congressional districts? Like,
I know, it's
what
crazy.
are you freaking doing? So they clearly abandoned the base. They never. I remember meeting with Paul Gazelka once he got elected in 2016. I think Jack and I met with him in like December-ish of 2016. And he's like, so what do you guys want? And that's the right thing, like reach out to some of the major groups and find out what kind of coalition we could do. And I go, well, Mr. Gazelka, our people want to see government shrink. We want to see you guys lead by, a budget that cuts government by 5-10%. He said, we can't do that. I was like, what are you talking about? You can't do it. You guys go around the state saying government's the problem. Government's too big. And you can't even propose a budget that shrinks government? Like, that's so ridiculous. And so there you go. They start their negotiations already growing government. What do you think's going to happen? I mean, that's like the issue that should unite every Republican, is that government's too big and it should be shrunk, and they won't even do that. So Republicans never deliver. They abandon the base, and then they wonder why, oh my God, why are we not getting donations from the grassroots anymore? And that's the problem, and this is why guys like Kip either lies or just doesn't understand it and tells you that the Action for Liberty people want a weaker party. The problem is they don't want a weaker party. They want a party guided by core principles. They want to unite with those core principles and move it down the field, right? That's what we want. We want to get a touchdown. We want to move the ball down the field. But the problem with the establishment that runs the party, they don't care about that stuff. You have to remember their objective, their number one objective, is to have a monopoly on center-right politics. And next up is to win governing majorities, and somewhere way down here is actually advanced liberty. It just isn't a big, because once you're invited to the party, why do you need to get liberty passed? Like what incentive do you have? Actually, there is an incentive. This is this foolishness on their part. The incentive is you might just be rewarded with more governing majorities. It was like on the show the other day. Was it you or William said? Well, I think it was William that said it, that the Republicans will probably lose the midterms in 2026. And we just believe that. And the reason we believe it is because they just don't do what they say they're going to do. And the cycle says the Democrats will be the governing majority again. And really, if Republicans take this majority and they take this Trump presidency and do something with it, voters might just reward him and say, we kind of like what you're doing. We're gonna vote you back in. Like, boom. Maybe, just
right,
maybe.
You have to keep your base motivated.
Yeah.
An unmotivated base doesn't show up to vote. So, yeah, it's one of those things that you have to deliver for something, and especially considering that the House has a 67 opportunity. The Republicans need to be in lockstep, and if they try to wiggle out of anything, and it's never going to just be a one-person thing, you know, as much as Ron Kreischer wants to have driver's licenses for illegals, he's never going to be the one guy to stand up and do that vote with the Democrats, because that is way too obvious. Instead, they do it as a swarm. So when you see the swarm of rhinos all voting for something, that's how you know something is very, very bad.
Gotcha. William is tuning into the show. Thanks, William. Did Kip show up? No, he did not show up. He had apparently a scheduling conflict. I don't know.
He had to go get his manicure done.
Yeah, there you go. No, but I kind of knew he was never going to show up. I pretty much called that, didn't I, Jesse? I called it from the get-go.
Yep.
I don't think he's going to show up, but I would have loved. Listen, if your schedule doesn't work, we'd be happy to have you Zoom in. Kip, you can Zoom in. We could do an interview from far. You know, listen, I'll give you a platform to talk. You know, that's what I like. This is just the way I view things. Is I do think we have a superior argument on all this kind of inter-party stuff or views of liberty versus the leftist radical views. I think we have a superior argument on all that stuff, but I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I would love to have that conversation, that debate, and God, I might learn something. Probably not, but I would love to learn something. Like that's the problem with ideologues. Ideologues don't really want to test to what they believe in, and then they go down a bad road. They go down a real bad road. I think you should be open-minded enough to think that you could be wrong on some of your views and you could learn something new. I was wrong. I was in 2002-ish. I was holding up a Bomb Saddam sign, you know? And then I went to Iraq eventually. And my views changed quite a bit on that issue. So we can have new information and change our views, okay? So don't be afraid to change your views. But, you know, the one thing that I feel like will never change with me, because it's like the blood run through my veins, is that I truly believe in liberty. I think it's such a precious gift that's given to us by our Creator, by God. And who are you, another human being, to try to take that away from me? Who are you to do that? And so, and this is the libertarian, you know, philosophy, you know, and I always say I'm a small L libertarian, just a libertarian belief. I've never been part of the Libertarian Party, but it's that you have a right to live the life that you want to live as long as you're not harming another individual. Once you aggress or abuse another person's rights, that's where it ends. And so if you steal, you rape, you kill somebody, then that's where your liberty can be taken away, because you've done that to another individual. But if you smoke a joint and no one's harmed by that, you shouldn't be harmed by that. And if you go out and you earn a living to help support your family, no one should be able to come and take that wage or that salary you got away from you, which is what the government does. And so, and I think, by the way, libertarianism is very congruent with conservatives. I will easily call myself a libertarian or a conservative, you know, or a classical liberal if you really want to get down to it. I think government's the problem. I think liberty's the solution, right? And when it comes to foreign politics, I think humbleness is a better way to go about things. And I think not sending our money overseas like Tom Emmer does to Ukraine is a better course for our future. Not just because we're flat out broke, but also because there's blowback when we intervene. And by golly, you know, I thought the most important show to do today is a show about how Republicans win in Minnesota. But boy, I was really tempted to do a show on how we shouldn't be praising the fact that Al-Qaeda just took over Syria. Although Biden somehow scrambled through an 8-minute speech from the Oval Office, highlighting the fact that Bashar al-Assad, Assad is gone. I can't, every time I hear
celebrating it, I imagine
every time I hear Bashar, I can hear John McCain's voice saying it. I don't know why, but because remember, he was infamously there on the ground in Syria with the rebels, which were Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
And you want to know what Al Qaeda, ISIS, and those types are like when they take over power? Very, very much worse than dictators who are also really bad people. Oh, by golly, Trump's right. We should have nothing to do with that. Nothing.
Right.
That's so utterly stupid. Sorry,
these terrorists make these dictators look like peace-loving democratic leaders, in comparison. So people can say what they want to about Bashar al-Assad, but when it comes down to it, he is obviously much more of a stable actor for the region than Muslim terrorist groups.
K-Wall for Life is saying exactly it. Enjoy Sharia law. That's exactly what it is. Just read about the Taliban. Read about ISIS moving through Syria and Iraq. Read about that. And if you don't comply, you're done. And they'll go after your family.
Right, and I guess, I don't know. I guess they want Assad dead. They're mad at him for going to Russia. I guess, what's his alternative?
Assad's not a good guy. He's a terrible person, terrible human being, right? Like, I'm not trying to make an argument for Assad here. It's just that it's not like we got better here, right? No one's under the belief Syria is going to fall in the hands of great patriots, right? Freedom-loving people. It's all so effed up, but according to Biden, we're praising the fact that Assad is gone.
Right. Assad, he's no Ron Paul, but he's better than like the Ayatollah of Iran, so, it's one of those things that...
He's better than the Ayatollah in Iran because his ambitions aren't so much nuclear and aren't more domination of the whole region.
Right.
But Assad's a terrible person to his people. Like, let's not be under any impression he's a great... Right. He's a dictator.
He's a dictator.
And his dad was bad.
Abusive of his people and whatnot.
Right.
And it's just one of those things where the Democrats and, well, I guess I shouldn't even say the Democrats, the establishment and the neocons were using, false attacks that he used chemical weapons against his own people. That was the big allegation when really him and his government say they had nothing to do with it. It was these outside groups, and Rand Paul said he would be the dumbest dictator in the world if he were to have used chemical weapons against his own people. Considering that he's trying to unify his people against these terrorist groups, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it might have been a staged attack to perpetrate onto Assad. So I don't believe everything that's coming out in the media about Assad, and I don't know exactly what to think of him. But yeah, it's bad for the region for him to be taken out like this.
Yeah. All right, let's move into the post show. I got something I want to talk about. Maybe I'll talk more about Syria too, but I got something more related on this topic here. I think, all in all, what you got to learn from this episode, overwhelmingly the objective of the Republican establishment, in this case, let's just be honest here, Tom Emmer's GOP, David Hann at the helm, looks like they want Kip Christensen as well. What these guys want is a monopoly on center-right politics, and their goal is not to deliver liberty. Even David Hann will admit he's there for a governing majority. And so what? Who cares? Are you going to donate money for a governing majority? This is why they feel threatened by Action for Liberty, because Action for Liberty gets donations from people that possibly would have given to the Republican Party if they actually stood for what they say they stand for. I know. I mean, I'm guessing a lot of you guys in this show thread don't donate to the Republican Party because you're sick of it. And the problem that we have at Action for Liberty is there's a lot of people that don't donate to the party but donate to us because we actually deliver. But there's also people that won't even donate to us because the party has ruined it. I always call it an abusive relationship. Why would they give to politics anymore? Every time they do, it's used against them. Why would any one of those 200 delegates from Otter Tail County ever give a dime to the party when they could their voice could be squashed like that? So this is the problem the Republican Party has, and I think it could be rebuilt. I think the right leader could rebuild it. And it's sad that I think it's really going to come down to an attractive gubernatorial candidate to revive this party, because I don't think it's going to come from the chair. So you need to have a larger-than-life personality. And if that person has got the right principles and the right the right mentality and the right objectives, I would be on board in a heartbeat. And maybe they could build a coalition and bridge the gap. So, how do we make Neil Shaw a very popular guy all of a sudden? I like Neil so much. And also, you got to start building from the ground up. You got to start becoming more part of the community. Honest to God, that's the way to do it. And then just never abandon your base. That's it. Never abandon your base. But it all starts on Saturday. Will the Republican Party actually make the right choice and ditch the bad quarterback or the bad coach, whatever reference you want to use, and go with somebody new, right? And so we'll see. We'll see that on Saturday. I think there's a chance, but who knows? Thank you to our great sponsors today, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're using Warren Wessel, go finance that home through the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com and start up an application today. They're licensed in many, many states. I don't even know all the states. It's not just Minnesota. Many states. They'll probably be in all states really soon. And also, if you're looking for cabinetry work, give the good guys at Alpine Cabinetry your business up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. St. Cloud, Minnesota. Thank you to a Rumble Rant. I think we had just one. Was that Ganser?
I think so.
Okay, Ganser, thank you so much. If you're not a premium subscriber, go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support for $8 a month or $88 a year. You can help support this show and all the things we have coming. We got six more shows left in December. Maybe the last show we'll do some of a reveal to what we're going to be doing. Actually, you know what? Let's do it in post-show.
And K-Wall for Life asks if there will be a Thursday show.
Yes, there will be a Thursday show. And Senator Nate Wiesenberg is going to be joining us on Thursday. And then he'll actually be at the event on Thursday night, the Action for Liberty event. I got something I want to show you guys, things that we're working on. So premium subscribers, if you're not a premium subscriber, go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on the top, and join us. Otherwise, on the Rumble page, you can just click on join. It really helps support all the things that we got going on. We want to accomplish some big things. I got an idea for a documentary too, Jesse. I haven't told you, and I really am excited about this. So we'll start this post show in just a minute on Locals. By the way, if you're signing up right now, you get a free Locals account and you get to watch the post show. So for those that are already subscribers, we'll see you there. For everyone else, we'll be back here on Sunday. Take care. God bless.